Hey, this is Allison Strong, actor, singer, songwriter, and you are watching the Points of Experience podcast with Paul Castro Jr.
We have such a wonderful soul joining us on this episode of the Points of Experience podcast. It is Allison Strong. I have known Allison for 10 years at this point, as we discover in the episode, which is just so crazy. And we've been watching each other's careers through social media. The blessing and the the only thing I want to comment on it is the blessing of what social media really does allow us to do, is to see people that we can't necessarily always be with and watch their journeys and their stories and their growth. Allison is one of the best and most giving people in this industry. And I say best because we don't really talk about it in the episode, but she's constantly, from a teaching perspective and involvement in the communities, trying to give back. She has worked, she's worked on Broadway and musicals like Mamma Mia and Bye Bye Birdie. On film, you guys might know her from The Week Of with Adam Sandler and Chris Rock on Netflix. She's also been in episodes of The Blacklist, The Marvelous Miss Maisel. She is also a very talented voiceover artist and actor, working a ton in the New York market with audiobooks, commercials, radio, and all the great stuff that's afforded there. And lastly, if you haven't heard her music, stay tuned for a lot of information about some of her upcoming music that she will be releasing, and you can check out her music on Spotify under Allison Strong. I highly recommend it. Some of the most beautiful music I've seen, and what I've come to discover is it's dated, so what she's got coming is a whole new transformation of music. So we talk a lot about her career starting out at a very young age, getting to work on Broadway and musicals, some of the experiences she had in her life that kind of led up to that moment and kind of happened at the same time that really kind of shaped what those experiences came to be. Her recognition of where she is in her life and the things that bring her joy and the things that don't. It's a really, really good episode for anybody who's interested in the arts in any capacity, because she's discovering things about herself that she really does enjoy, and things that she wants to focus on more, and things that she wants to explore. And I think that's important for any artist who wants to enrich their life and in turn enrich their art, because the more experiences you have, gosh, there's a lot of experience talk here on the Points of Experience podcast, huh? The more experiences you have, the more I think that you have to bring to any role, especially as an actor, artist, performer. So at this moment, please, if you don't mind, give us a like and subscribe. Review us on Apple and Spotify, all those great places, so more people can discover this wonderful podcast. And this is a little bit of a news here, as I've been requested from many people. This will probably be available at the time you're watching this episode. I'm going to be offering some one-on-one coaching myself and classes in some capacity, because I felt like it was a really great thing to add for people interested and really taking this seriously. So depending upon where you're at in your journey, in your adventure, it might be something right for you, but I really want to start helping people on a more intimate level. So you can check out my website for that, paulcastrojr.com. But without further ado, we've got the amazing, the magnificent Allison Strong on the Points of Experience podcast. I miss Jersey. I don't miss that 2 or 8 degree weather you guys had the other day, which I heard.
To be honest with you, we were back to 50 degrees today, so it's a little disconcerting, but very enjoyable.
Yeah.
At the same time, great for walks.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I honestly, if I am being honest, I do miss the seasons and the kind of that irregularity. I do miss in a way, because it grounds you in time. Whereas people in LA, and I've experienced it now, where you kind of lose a sense of what month it is, even, because it's like
springtime all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very weird feeling, and it kind of messes with you. at least coming from the East Coast, I don't really have a sense of where I am in like progress of things, like from a year to year basis. It's hard to regulate. Like, what am I doing? When am I supposed to be doing it? Like January disappeared. Maybe that's just for everybody. Did you feel that way for you? Did January just disappear?
It did. It moved like I had an idea of how the next couple of months were going to go at the end of the year and starting in January. And then coming into February, I made this decision to really take the pressure off and allow things to reveal themselves to me in their own time and to surrender to sort of, I guess, and this is going to sound very hippie-like, but sort of surrender to the universe's timing rather than having my own agenda with it, because every time I make a plan, it's like the universe laughs at me.
I really think that, most people will frame that as being hippie and like, it's like, oh yeah, surrender to the universe. Heard that a billion times. But I really think that is like framing it when people try to like put that down. It's like, no, because whether you consider that the universe or religion or whatever you believe in terms of the force of the way that this world works, if we put so much pressure on ourselves, it's not conducive for anything productive,
No, it's not. Yeah.
So I think that's actually like one of the best advices, and it seems so simple and it seems so hippie as we'll refer to it here, but it's kind of like if you can start there, surrendering to whatever it is, where you are, what it's going to be, not putting so much pressure on yourself, you allow yourself the freedom to fail and learn. And by fail, I mean, not having the desired output potentially. Like you tried your hardest and then something beautiful might happen.
Absolutely. And I think it just, it incorporates peace into your plan as well when you sort of release your timing and that things have to happen on this agenda. You can't plan for unforeseen circumstances or unforeseen luck, that stroke of luck that, as performers that we all hope for as human beings. That's what we, it's serendipitous. So I think it's just, my favorite phrase is just taking your hands off the wheel.
I like the is it the sham wow or what is the other one? Set it and forget it. It's the what is that from? I forget which one of those infomercials, but really I do say it all the time, and I preach it like I do the audition and I forget it. I do the job.
Commercial. It might be a Crock-Pot, something like that. Sort of like set it and forget it, and it just. One way that I go about with my auditions is that once I print the side, I throw it out right away.
That's a great practice too.
Well,
yeah.
I recycle it. Let's be environmentally conscious. So I recycle it. But the thing is, every time I really, really want and grab, it doesn't really happen. So I just try to have fun with what I'm doing in that moment. Say I get to play this part for these 30 minutes that I'm doing this self-tape, or these 15 minutes that I'm doing these three takes, which is what we're used to sometimes with VO. And then I just try to let it go. And then I go and enjoy my life, whatever is in my life as a real human being, because how can you be a performer? How can you, I'm also a writer, a songwriter. And so how can I write about life? How can I act as if I were a human being if I'm not really in my life with my people? The older I get, the more that I realize this is what matters, because I spent so much of I started working quite early. I've been singing since I was 8 or so, and performing. And then I made my Broadway debut when I was in college. I was 18 years old. And I just found that I was trying to escape from my life and into this New York City reality. I didn't want to be a kid anymore. I just wanted to work, and I wanted to jump into that dream. I wanted to live that dream. What I wanted for years was to be a Broadway star. And I missed out on a lot. So I missed out on a lot. And so when I graduated college, I think I started to live that, sort of, not college experience again, because I was never crazy. I've never been a partier. I've been quite square pretty much my entire life. But it's just sort of like when actors are like, no, I can't leave town because I'll miss that audition, or this sort of thing can happen. I can't travel. I can't do these things. And now as I get older, I realize, no, now is the time for me to do those things because fun is the quickest manifester. So when I find that every time I go on vacation, I book a job. For example, that always happens to me, or two.
Yeah, I agree so hard on that. And, it's so important what you're saying. And I could say it a billion times. Having an identity outside of your career is so foundational to what makes you independent from everybody else in the audition. What are you bringing in terms of your life and your experience to these characters that's not just a carbon copy of what's written on the specs or the character breakdown? So many people get hung up on like, I am an actor. I must now play these stereotypes that are written within these specs, and there's no humanity that's brought. There's nothing that is from, not that you have to bring your trauma. We're not talking even method acting here. We're just talking an understanding of things that happen in life. Laughter, tragedy, growth, friendship, love.
Friendship is so huge too, because friendship takes work.
Yeah.
And, I've had the same group of friends since I was 5 years old. It's a really rare and unique thing. And my best friend, I met him on the first day of first grade. And he's been my brother ever since. He's a doctor at Yale. I'm a professional actor, musician, and a million other things, and we could not be more different.
Yeah.
But talking with him, going to visit him, we're traveling together this spring, and he always asks me, he was asking me the other day because we're booking this trip. He goes, "Is any of your work or your art stuff going to get in the way of our trip?" And the reality is that's always a reality in my life, but I try my best to respect the time that I have with my people, because that's what makes my life and makes all of this rejection so much easier to take.
Yeah.
I remember I was doing a film shoot in November, and my really good friend Brenda, who I met in second grade, we can go down the list.
Yeah.
Her father was turning 60 years old, and I had a 6 a.m. call for a shoot. And it was dinner at 8 o'clock, and it's dancing. And I'm like, I'm leaving at 10. And I'm like, okay, I'm leaving at 11. Okay, I'm leaving at 12. And you know what? I was just sort of like thinking to myself, one, it's daylight savings. I get an extra hour of sleep tomorrow. And these are the things that in a couple of years I'm going to remember. When my parents are gone, when her parents are gone, when we're getting older, these are the moments in life that I'm really going to remember. And it makes me emotional to even think about it, that, I spent years, work, and not really looking up from the audition side, not really looking up from what I was doing to really appreciate my life and all that good that is already here. And that's what really matters.
Resonates with me so much. I definitely, for the 10 years I lived in New York City, even being so close to home, I still even had those pressures of saying, if I try and go home right now, that's, 2 hours of traffic, and then I'm going to be there, and then I'm going to be stressing about getting home tomorrow, maybe not, having enough rest for this audition tomorrow. And I still had those moments where I lost out on a lot of experiences and time with family and time with friends and important milestones for people that could have been memories that I really wanted to be a part of. And that is something that really goes hand in hand with an early part of an artist's career. If you aren't very fortunate and land a very financially rewarding job right off the bat, because even if you book a lot of things, starting out for me, I wound up booking some cool jobs, independent films and even studio films. You're not making this money that is what you would imagine in this career, where you're like, I'm taking a vacation tomorrow, and then if I want to make a movie in 3 months, I'll make a movie in 3 months, and I'll just chill until then. The hustle kind of continues on to stay competitive and stay... Even like, this was definitely something I thought of at the time. I'm curious about it for you, because you started so young. Did you feel the pressures of kind of relevancy or striking while the irons were hot? Did you feel like the pressure of, okay, I have a foot in the door now. I don't want to take that foot out because I've worked on Broadway, or, I was doing these things. Did you feel that pressure from behind you to keep your foot on the gas?
Well, I think that maybe we should start here with where I began in my journey, and then we can talk a little bit further. I feel like, to be honest with you, the pressure to stay relevant really didn't happen until the advent of social media and this comparison illness that we are all suffering from now. Seeing what everyone else is doing and just automatically taking that to mean that you're not worthy, that you don't belong here, that you should probably quit and do something else, rather than taking that as, and this is what I do now, when I see my friends doing well, I take that as like the driftwood that I'm on my way to whatever it is that I am looking forward to next. I think that's a lot smarter and healthier, but I think it's hard with a young brain. So I'm really happy, to be honest with you, that I wasn't really active on social media when I was younger, because I don't know how these kids can handle this.
It is a very stressful thing to think about, and even my experience as well as yours, where social media was kind of coming up as we were coming up in this industry.
Yeah.
I think that, MySpace, there was still
MySpace
a barrier.
Was definitely the early high school thing for me, and it felt more just like, can I talk to that cool kid from class later?
Yeah.
Who's in my top 8? This is such like a millennial thing right now.
I know.
Definitely aging myself, but at this point,
I'm with you.
It's but anyway, talking about beginnings and stuff. So I was a very shy kid. My mom put me in musical theater classes quite early. I wasn't one of those kids who came out of the womb saying, I want to be a performer. I just really, I was really shy and felt like a different person when I was singing. So when I'm not just a voiceover actor, I'm a voice actor. And like a voice artist, really. I consider myself not just voiceover or just acting. I started singing. And I guess I should have known that, because when I was 3 years old, I was jumping on the table and singing to this Brazilian star, Xuxa. I'm Latina, so I'm Colombian. So there was a lot of Spanish TV going on growing up. And but even so, at home, I was, this bright, kid, making shows in the living room. But at school, I was very shy. So my mom put me in musical theater classes, didn't get any solos. And I would sing in the car and beg my mom, please ask my teacher for a solo for me. And and my teacher gave me one very reluctantly. And then afterwards, after a presentation, I sang much more from the Fantastics. I was, I think at this time, 7 years old. All these parents asked my mom where I took voice lessons, and my mother said she doesn't take any. And they said she's going to be on Broadway one day. And so from there, the seed was planted, and I started winning singing competitions. I was the Oscar Mayer Wiener girl in Spanish when I was 10 or 11 years old, which is hilarious. And did a lot of contests in New Jersey and nationwide. And it sort of solidified my path for me. I actually didn't really think about film. I thought about music first before anything else. And then, kids do musicals in school, so it turned into that. And that's what I ended up pursuing in high school. I wanted to be in the play. And then when I went to college, I was like, well, musical theater is the thing.
Yeah.
And then when I got to New York, I realized, wow, there's a lot of different types of acting. And, I was maybe 18 years old I was 18 years old, yes. Well, I booked my first show off of an open call, slept on the street, waited for 5 or 6 hours for somebody to call my name. I was number 111 or something, online. My mom was in the car watching me as I slept to make sure that no one would steal my place in line. There were must have been 500 or 600 kids. And
this was a Broadway open call.
Broadway open call for Bye Bye Birdie, and I was 18 years old. All the kids from my school went. I went separately, but I was sleeping on the street. My mom said before I went in, belt Allison, because I was always very careful with my voice. Went in and I belted my song, and got a call back and then went for a matinee performance of community theater because I hadn't been cast in the freshmen don't get cast in the musical at school.
I've heard.
Yeah, so I was doing community theater, like Little Women. I was playing Jo, and then that turned into my first Broadway show, and I left school for a beat. And then from then on, like I after I booked my show, after that I got signed with an agency, and so they said, well, we don't just represent musical theater actors, we want to represent actors all across the board. So that was the message to me, to diversify. And I said, well, let's just go with the flow. And I booked my first national commercial within 1 week of signing with Buchwald, my current agency, and my agency for the last 13 years. I booked a national, what was it? Staples Easy Button commercial.
I love it. I love it.
And it was awesome because, I was in school accruing debt, and being an actor was the way that I paid off school. And I still looked like I was like 13 years old, so it all really worked out for me in that way. And did my first Broadway show. But, all those early successes, I think, because things happen so easy, and probably they happen so easily because I had no idea how hard it could be.
That's
I was very
important.
young. Yeah. I had the mind of the beginner. So I was just sort of like throwing all of my sparkles in the air and seeing where they landed. You know what I mean? And when I graduated college with 2 Broadway credits under my belt, I was in Mamma Mia after that. I met the music director of Mamma Mia when I was at Bye Bye Birdie, and he said, you should audition for this show. Took me 2 tries, but I got it on the second time. And it really is who you know, Paul. I think you know this.
I know it all too well.
It really is who you know. Sometimes it's lucky, but a lot of times it's who you know.
I think the other part of who you know is also who trusts you, because it's one thing for people to know who you are. It's another thing to have established that they can trust you with a project. So you had been working on Broadway. You showed this person that you're talented and that you can do the job already. So there was already a sense of confidence that created for you, because you're doing this job at a level that is extremely, you probably didn't even recognize how competitive that was at the time.
I had no idea. And it also coincided, I think, too, with one of the hardest emotional periods of my life when I first booked my first show. I didn't have my mother or my aunt or my family with me for 6 months because my grandmother became paralyzed, and my family had to go to Colombia to take care of her. And my grandmother raised me with my mother, but she did not live in this country. She lived in Colombia. She was like our pioneering, our matriarch, because she was the person that came to this country in her 40s, already with 2 children, and she decided to come to this country with $200 in her pocket. And, that coincided with this open call. My mom had come home for 2 days, and I went to the Bye Bye Birdie open call with her, and she had to go back to Colombia to take care of my grandma. And also my mother was suffering from C. diff that she had acquired in the hospital taking care of my grandmother. And she had an open wound, and so my mom was also very ill, and my grandmother couldn't speak anymore and couldn't walk, and it was just a terrible time. And the day that my grandmother died was the day of the final callback for this show. And the day that I found out I got this job, I couldn't even tell my family because the calling card wasn't working. The day of the funeral, so it's crazy. Yeah. That
is a lot going on there, and I have so many questions. I would love to just even jump back a hair to really kind of unpack these things for people, especially young aspiring artists. You talked about how, you're a voice actor. Your voice is so important to who you are and the artist that you are. What was was there a certain moment where you found the power of your voice, or was there a moment that you identified where music became really important to you, or somebody said to you, you should try singing this, or did it just come out of you one day and you're like, I like doing this? What was that kind of magic that happened when you first used your voice and realized you had either fun or power from using it?
So I touched on this lightly before. I was a very shy kid. I sang at home, but I was a very shy kid. But, when you sing as a child, my mom wasn't thinking that I was going to be a singer or a performer or anything.
Yeah.
She's put me in these musical theater classes, but I wasn't getting any solos because I wouldn't speak. No one knew I could speak. I just, all these improvisations, zip, zap, zop, didn't do anything for me. But they would give me these recordings to listen to learn these sort of ensemble numbers, and I would be belting in the car, and I just was following what felt good. And that's how this began for me. I was following what felt good, and no, I wasn't really thinking about, this is the career path I want.
Mm-hmm.
It was just really a question of, this makes me happy. I'm really liking these classes. I'm really liking singing in class, and that sort of that innate knowledge as a child of knowing what feels right and what doesn't feel right. So singing felt right. And that's why I asked my mom this smart little 7-year-old saying to her mom, please ask for a solo for me. They won't give me one. Please, please, please. And all the other kids in class were getting solos too. It was like one of these child showcases, 10 kids in a class type of thing. But no one wanted to give me anything because I didn't speak. Of course, I understand. Yeah. As a teaching artist now, which is one of the things that I do, I teach master classes. I understand why a teacher wouldn't have put faith in me at that time, because I wasn't really showing it in class. I was a bit of a follower, and I was just scared to speak up. But when I did get that solo and I was given the opportunity, and I think it's all about being given that first sign that you're good at this. Mm-hmm. I took it as that. When they trusted me with it, I wasn't going to let that opportunity pass me by. And so I learned that song. I obsessed about, the outfit that I was going to wear. I sang on stage, and once I hit that stage, I felt like a different person. I felt like Allison 2.0. I felt like a different version of me. And that's when I realized as a child, the stage made me feel like the best version of myself, and made me feel like I could be heard, which I think is such a big, it's something as I get older, I realize, people deserve to hear your voice. People deserve to listen to you,
It sounds to me, it's so true. And I think not a lot of people get that opportunity or feel that they are comfortable enough to, really capitalize on the type of opportunity. It sounds to me like, and maybe this is what's applicable to a lot of people here, is that when you are feeling that sense of freedom, and I think we all have the capacity to be really talented at certain things. Mm-hmm. I have to reckon that you have this innate talent from a young age, that you were able to pick up on music, you were able to understand the musicality of things, and at that young age you were able to really communicate through music, through maybe things you heard or through your lessons. Do you feel like that was just from being obsessed with music, or from just having the freedom to try, or from people around you who were really giving you good pointers? Where did you find the skill or the talent coming into the picture, or was it just something that was in you?
I think that there was something raw, something of raw talent to begin with, but I was very lucky that I had a very... I was raised in a single parent home. My mom wanted me to have every opportunity that she didn't have. She came to this country at 9 years old. And in her household growing up, she immigrated from Colombia to Houston and then to New Jersey. It was about survival, and it wasn't about frills. And studying was about getting a secure and steady job, not about following joy.
It's a very real thing for a lot of people.
And that is the gift that my grandmother and my mother gave to me. My grandmother gave my mother a childhood without violence, a safer childhood, and, a new country of opportunity where she could study, where she could become a doctor, because my mom, well, she'll never say it because she's incredibly humble, and she's always instilled that into me. My mom is a doctor of psychology, and she worked in the school systems for 40 years, and she made a good life for me and for us. But basically, the gift of my mother and my grandmother is that I can follow my joy and my passion. It makes me emotional, really, because with what they went through when they came to this country, with, racism and stereotypes. My mom ran home from school every day. Kids would throw rocks at her and call her spick, and that's just the reality. And she wouldn't be allowed into kids' homes because they'd say, that little Latina girl, she's not allowed in my house. Things like that. She tells me all of these stories. And, I never had to deal with any of that. Yeah. And though I've had struggles, and while I get sad about the jobs that I don't get, or the things that were promised to me, the favored nations contracts that I've had and that weren't respected by producers, which has happened. We all have things that have been promised to us for years and have been taken away, and I can count on both hands the jobs that have fallen through my fingers like sand. But I don't know what it's like to go to sleep hungry. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it's like to run away from school because kids are pelting you with stones. And that's why I think that, again, following my joy is the gift of my parents and my grandparents, and I really don't feel like I have the right to complain, truly.
You have a tremendous capacity for perspective, and that is so important there's so many people that would love to pursue a career in the arts, and a lot of people who are now afforded that ability, and that wasn't always the case for a lot of people and a lot of families. And I think about this, that is something that weighs on me all the time, how lucky I am to pursue something that is fun for me, that I would do for no money. When I think about the stuff that my parents had to do and my grandparents, and that is a tremendous gift that we are given. And like you said, that, and also I want to make a comment here. This is an aside just before I forget. Favored nations means that everybody get paid the same, and to have that opportunity be taken away from you is right. That's I'm correctly explaining.
I think so. That is favored nations. I'm meaning right of first refusal.
Oh, right of first refusal, which is another even important opportunity when you've worked on something and maybe you've helped develop
for years. Yes.
Yeah. And when you've worked on something and they would say, yeah, you're going to get the first opportunity to work on this, and you can say no if you want to. And then sometimes they go ahead and just make the thing without you anyway. So both very important terms, very important terms. But again, it sounds like you have tremendous perspective, and the fact that you are able to have that. Maybe it's now, I don't know when that really came apparent for you, the recognition of that, that, you are able to have the maturity about that in your career. And we were talking about this before off camera a little bit, but it's a tough gig. And I think when you realize that, when you commit fully to this as a career and you're trying to pay your bills doing it, you need a lot of perspective. You need a lot of maturity to understand how you're going to take care of yourself while pursuing a career that is gig to gig for most people doing it.
Yeah, and I think also we have to understand that as artists, we're kind of like special snowflakes, all of us. And not everyone's going to understand us. And that, I would count our families as that in a lot of cases for a lot of people. Growing up in an immigrant home, I think because my mom came here so early, and because I was an only child, she wanted me to have these opportunities that she never had. I think if my mom had had another chance, she probably would have been a genealogist or, a baker. She's now in her retirement following her passions, and her passion is genealogy. That is absolutely her passion. She's having that chance now in her 60s. And I think because she came to this country and was more Americanized early, she was more open-minded about jobs, because, in a lot of immigrant households, if the parents come a little bit later to this country, the goal is just get the most secure job possible. And in some cases, and I don't want to generalize here, but if your parents were laborers, they expect you to do a job with your hands, and not study. So just go straight to work. So it depends on the household, though. So my mom, she was afforded, an education, and she didn't get the opportunity to study the arts. She wanted so desperately as a child to play violin. So she said, hey, my daughter's going to go sing. And I don't think she necessarily intended for me to think of it as a career path, but it was very clear that I was a one-track mind from the time that I opened my mouth to sing. So, and then acting sort of, and I think we should talk about this too, because does every performer have to be born with a gift?
It's an interesting conversation, right? Because I think a lot of people think that they do, and they think that they have to be born from the womb as, the gift for everybody to see. And I resonate with the opposite of that. I felt like I couldn't have been less talented when I started out. I felt like I had no talent. I felt like I was doing something that I really enjoyed doing, but I had to work really hard to figure out how to do it. I struggled a lot early on. I had, and I credit a lot of what I went through, and I'm curious what it is for you, through sheer, a lot of what I have done, just for your own perspective, is I experienced what my parents didn't have, and their tremendous heartache of their suffering and hard work. And I come from a lot of family trauma, and that's I've talked about it a little bit, but it's a lot of interfamily confrontation, aggression, and things. And so I saw a household like that, and it's weird to think like, yeah, I'm going to pursue the arts, and that's how I'm going to avoid, getting into a situation like that, and I'm going to help my family. But that was in my way, I always thought that I wasn't really talented in anything, but I felt like I had a capacity for vulnerability. So I wanted so badly.
That's the job.
That is the job. So it's a very weird way of framing things. And I thought through my vulnerability, I'm going to be as vulnerable as possible to tell the truth. Like, that came to me in college. What about for you? Where's, how did that, when you say you had a fire towards something, where did that fire or one-trackness, what was that from?
It's about following joy for me and sharing it. That's what it's always been. I've always wanted to share this joy that I feel when I'm sharing stories, because that's what we're doing as artists, sharing stories. And I am a tall tale teller, and I don't mean that as liar. I'm a tall tale teller because I come from a long line of people who did just that. I don't come from a family of artists per se, but my grandparents would force us to listen to poetry at the dinner table when we were in Columbia every summer. And they would sing to us and make us sit through it and sit through long stories of their childhood. And so for me, I think that while I don't, I don't think I was born and was like, I'm going to be an actor. It wasn't for me. But it was telling stories and sharing joy in that way is how I think I connected with it. I hope I answered your question.
Yes.
But that's how I think I was connected to it. But I also wasn't. I want to connect with you on the fact that I don't believe I was the most natural actor to begin with. I was actually rejected from my first agency meeting, which I had when I was 13 years old. They told me so. Here in New Jersey, there's something called the Paper Mill Playhouse Rising Star Awards. And I was born and raised here in New Jersey and come from a school district, an Abbott school district, which I don't know if it's in other states, but it just generally means a very a disadvantaged school district where there is less funding. And so there was no funding for the arts. Our shows were not the best. But
what town did you grow up in? I'm sorry.
I grew up in Union City, New Jersey. I was born in Hoboken, New Jersey, though.
Right
Wikipedia
outside
has it wrong. Wikipedia is wrong. They said, but yeah, I was born in Hoboken, raised in Union City, New Jersey. And, Paper Mill came to our shows, but never nominated us for anything. We weren't big budget. We just had a lot of heart and a lot of raw, desire to put on a show in the middle of the gymnasium. rehearse while having, volleyballs pelted in our faces or baseballs or whatever was in season. This casting director came to not this casting director, this rising star judge came to my show when I was 13 years old and said, we're not going to nominate you for anything, but we think that this agent should see you. And so the agent came to my show, and then I got a meeting with her, and then I built this up so much. I think that was the first moment where I really felt pressure to, I must succeed at this thing, so that I can become, a star or whatever it is. And she gave me some TV film copy, and she said, "You are too dramatic. Kids don't act on Broadway," which now we realize is an absolute farce. But at the time, there weren't as many kids on Broadway.
Yeah.
And so she said, "I'm not going to sign you, but I'm going to send you to this TV film acting teacher." And at the time, it was such a burn, such a painful experience for me. I cried all the way home. This agent also, she was incredibly discriminatory towards the place where I'm from. She was basically saying that she was afraid to walk down the street, which I've dealt with a lot of that just because I come from a very densely Latino area. It's just the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Latinx is what we would call it now, what people would call it, but but it's a very Latin neighborhood, and I come from a sanctuary city where it's 98% Hispanic here.
Yeah.
And so it was a mixture of her saying, "Aren't you afraid to walk down the street? Aren't you afraid to be where you're from?" And then also saying, "You can't act and I won't sign you." It was very painful. And that was my first experience with an agent, but it turned into this incredible blessing because the acting teacher she referred me to was my mentor for 15 years, and his name was Peter Miner. He taught at the T. Schreiber Studio in New York City, and he not only was my teen acting coach, he became my private acting coach for all of my college auditions and all of my college musicals and plays. I was getting coached always for everything. I would try my best. I would take the train from school. I went to Montclair State University and go see him, and he took me through to my first lead in a feature film, and he passed the week that the pandemic started, and it was an incredible loss. But from, I think, pain and rejection, there can be the beauty of I think a new start, and that rejection turned into the best blessing for me, because I didn't want that agent. I didn't want that agent who wasn't kind.
Yeah.
She was kind to send me to Peter, but in that way, life sort of guided me in the right path. And also, I got a couple of years to just be a kid and not be some kid trying to pursue a thing. I got to be, a kid that was studying, but also going to school and, spending time with my friends, going to birthday parties.
Yeah.
When I hear, kids and this was before the pandemic too, hearing kids in waiting rooms talking to each other about what bookings they're getting, and they're like, 8 or 9 years old? That's instilling in them it just sucks the fun out of everything. And I'm sorry to all the stage moms that are out there that may be listening to this, but you gotta let your kid be a kid. Because once these rejections come in, I mean, you might be saying that you're creating a thick skin for your kid, but I would say let them enjoy the sweet and short season that won't last, and you enjoy it as the parent too. So yeah, it's a sweet short season.
Yeah, we are. As we were talking about with social media and everything, the expectation for almost like excellence and instant fame is so in our faces all over the place. And we're seeing people become overnight successes. We're seeing, regardless of talent, sometimes with immense talent, it's all different flavors of success or notoriety. So I think a lot of stage parents find I have different layers. I've known a lot of stage parents. I've seen the dark side of it, where it's parents, trying to have their child become the success for them and for them to become the financial, savior of a family. I've seen, parents that are very supportive. It's a very interesting thing to look at. I'm curious for you, the golden ticket, I think, is, especially for a young kid, is getting on Broadway. I mean, that's kind of the golden ticket for most people who grow up around a city area that has, theater, and that's the love. And I know there's a lot of stuff that happened around that opportunity for you getting on Broadway, especially with the loss in your family. But can you talk to me about, like, did you even recognize that you had achieved, like, the pinnacle of what many people who are interested in doing theater are trying to get? Like, did that, like, the reward of being on Broadway, did you feel the power, or did you feel the legacy that you were becoming a part of?
So interesting. So I'm going to talk about my final callback for this show. My grandmother had just passed away, and then I think the same day. And I had never been to the city alone up to, so my best friend's mother actually taught me how to take the bus to New York, and the day before, and we went on the bus together to New York because I was alone. My mother and my aunt were both caretakers for my dying grandmother. They had to go to the funeral. Also around this, they actually didn't tell me that my grandmother had died. I actually found out from phone calls from people. So also that feeling of semi-betrayal of not being told and then finding out. So I was dealing with a lot of grief. I actually messed up my callback, and I asked for a second try. I messed up. They were trying to vocalize me, and I think, I'm not saying that I was blasé about it, but I think I had a really early sense of what really matters and what really doesn't because of that loss. And I was like, I can have another try. My grandmother just died. My family, and for me, she was more than a grandmother. She raised me.
The matriarch, as you said, yeah. Yeah,
she raised me, and she, for a girl who was raised without a father, she was just integral for me. It was the first major loss of my life. So I think when I got the call, I was dealing with a tremendous amount of grief, and yes, I was so happy, and but it felt like a gift from my grandmother more than it felt like walking into any sort of, like what everyone dreams about. It felt like a gift to help me through the grief.
Yeah.
And also, it afforded me, because I had to leave school for 6 months to do this opportunity. I moved back home and was able to be with my mother and, be a comfort to her during, the most difficult time of her life. And so when we say, did I recognize the huge gift of it? I think I recognized it more when I walked onto that stage for the first time and looked up at the lights, and I just felt her everywhere. I felt my grandmother everywhere. I felt the gift of it, and not necessarily, my eyes weren't shining with, like Tony Awards or anything like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was more like I felt that she had ushered me. The fact that she died on the same day that I, was going in for this final interview where I had to sing and act, it almost felt like something else was taking over. Yes, I was dealing with a lot, but it almost like she carried me throughout my life and finally carried me into the next step of my life that she sadly didn't get to see in this world, see me through. But yeah, it's an odd, it's such an interesting question, like I dreamed about it since I was a child, but my family had just fallen apart, and I realized what actually like sort of mattered, and I was grateful for it, but it took me a little bit of time to really recognize, what a big deal it is, and what a huge responsibility it is to be doing 8 shows a week, and I had to grow up. I had never taken the subway before, even though I was from, I'd never taken the bus by myself into the city. It was just a huge learning experience. So there was a lot happening at the same time of this, incredible opportunity and this incredible joy. Learning to toughen up because now you're in the big city and you're from, a small town. So it was a huge opportunity. And now looking back on it, I'm like, wow. You don't really realize what you have in that moment until you really look back at it and really, dig in.
Well, I empathize so much and understand that experience. I think when you lose someone who's very close to you, again, someone who has tremendous perspective, I sense that from you. You have real perspective of the things that matter in life, and even hear you talking about it, at this age, I'm just starting.
I try.
Well, it's we assign all of these benchmarks, especially as actors. Like, if I don't do this, then I'm a failure. If I'm not worth it if I haven't been on a show, or if I haven't gotten this by this age. We create so many benchmarks. And I lost my father through the pandemic, and at that moment, it was I appreciate it. And I had lost people before, and I've had grandparents that weren't really close, and family members that weren't really involved in my life that I had lost. But it was the first time where I had that similar feeling to where someone who is integral into my life and a part of me, and you start realizing, like, oh, this is what matters, the human experience and the people around you, because those are the people that are with you when you're not working. Those are the people who are with you when you're not on set, when you don't have that success, and everyone on social media.
Which is actually like 90% of the time, right? And no one knows that out in the world, know?
That's the life you live and the type of person you are every day. And I think we get caught up in this idea, especially starting out, that once you start working as an actor, you'll just be on this show for all the time in 3 months, and then you'll have to run over and do a movie, and then on that off time I'll be doing a play, and that your life will be a constant, you'll have constant attention to or stimulus. There'll be constant stimulus of acting and work, but there's so much downtime, and that's why you see a lot of artists who are very confused with what to do, and they're experiencing depression and anxiety in weird ways, because you start associating your life and your success and your value by your work.
And I absolutely struggle with that, and I know that I don't want to make myself seem like I'm a graduated spirit all the time.
No.
You know what I mean? But we all deal with that, and that's why therapy is so amazing. That's why there are so many great books out there, like The Artist's Way, which is, I live by that book. I'm actually on book 2. I'm in the middle of Walking in This World. I think I'm on week 10 or 11 right now. It ends in week 12, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do if I don't have my morning pages.
Yeah, morning pages.
You know what I mean? So it's I think it's a really slippery slope, but when you start saying, I'm only worthy if I'm working, I'm only worthy if I'm, famous, I'm only worthy if I reach this next pinnacle, because then also too, I think that sort of desperation makes you grab, and it doesn't make for good auditions, good work, or a good life.
Yeah.
Honestly. So there's something about surrendering to the flow that I think I'm really responding to right now. And, I had being 100% honest, I had a complete different idea of where I would be this many years into my career.
Mm-hmm. And
I'd rather be honest about that. And so for all the people in the back who are like, why wasn't I a 30 under 30? Like a 30 most famous under 30, which I think is also, while it's wonderful for the people who are awarded those things, I think it sort of messages to everyone else that your life is over when you turn 30.
Yep.
That you aren't valuable if you aren't on one of those lists. And I know people that have been on those lists. I admire them, and I'm so happy for them and in their careers. But, not everyone's journey is the same. And sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to figure out where we are supposed to land. And I'm in a moment of my life right now where I've worked as an actor for 12 years. I think longer, actually, professionally. I've worked in almost every facet of this business. I started in theater. I I've done voiceover and animation, which, you know, we all know is how a lot of us get our health insurance most years. And no one wants to talk about it because people don't think that commercial or voiceover acting is actually acting, which is something that we can go into really deeply.
Yes.
And I've gone into feature films, which is actually, I think, how most people know me at this point, which is actually something that I didn't even start doing until a couple of years ago. But I've been in so many different facets of the industry. And also, like, during the pandemic, because we're all doing voiceover now, because we have this amazing opportunity of working from home, if we have the space for it, I sort of dipped my toe into audiobooks and have been really stably doing, I do Spanish voiceover as well as English, so it's great for me because I can represent brands in both languages, which I love. But I've come to this during the pandemic, I think, with so much time, to think about it and really mull it over. I've been asking myself, what is my purpose? What is my intention? What is it that I'm trying to create here truly? And, you know, I'm not sure if acting is my end point, being honest with you. And that's scary. Yeah. That's scary to admit.
And what was the revelation or the decision or any of the moments that led you to come to that conclusion?
Wow, it's like kind of scary to admit it here. I started singing and it has carried me through my life, and I think that in the last couple of years, you know, I actually released an album, my first record, the year after I graduated college, and it was wonderful. I had a band, we broke up. I decided to transition to theater and started having like really, you know, nice successes. Like, very grateful, you know, and great reviews, and, you know, led in features and, you know, stuff like that, really cool. But I realized that there are dreams that I've left behind. On this search to, you know, try to find the brightest light, you know, and it's this business is fickle. So there are times when it's incredibly joyful. I've had joyful jobs, and I've had jobs that have robbed me of my joy, where I was crying every day after rehearsal. I found a really sweet spot right now in creating my own work. And I think that that's my next chapter.
That's a very, thank you for sharing that. I know that's for you. You're probably still, it sounds like you're navigating even the processing of what that even means for you. And I couldn't be a bigger champion for people into creating their own work. I think that as an artist, even in conjunction with whatever you might be doing, pursuing, whether that's theater, on camera, all the list of things that a lot of people here listening to might be doing, whatever your expression of your own work, I think is extremely healthy. It helps you understand a lot about yourself, whether that's being a writer, creating your own music, writing your own series, understanding how to be behind the camera, whatever it might be. I think it gives you so much more power back in an industry where they want to take all the power away from you and you become a piece or a pawn on the chessboard.
Exactly. And like going into it, you know, I am a woman. I am a Colombian woman. I'm daughter of immigrants. I don't see a lot of women doing or making I don't see a lot of women on a lot of the sets that I'm on, which is just a reality. I had a music video shoot this weekend, and it was incredible, but I was one of 2 total women on set, and that was one of my sets, but I didn't hire everyone. And I loved the people that I worked with, but I think that there's, you know, on behalf of men, that there's a sort of myopia. You don't really see it until you're there. You know, I was executive producing, but I didn't produce, and I thought it was an incredible shoot. It was an incredibly blessed day, but, you know, when you, the thing is that one of my sets became a reflection of so many sets I'm on.
Yeah.
And it's, you really don't have the power unless you're in the creative control. And even then, you know, we can't have eyes everywhere. I was being the artist and also producing. I didn't hire everyone. I allowed my team to build the team of people. And it was just, they were the best people for the job, sure. But, I think the older I get, the more that I realize, so I'll preface this by saying, so Allison, what is it that you feel now is the time for? I think it's the time for writing for me, songwriting and writing in general, but also film production. And that I've had such a joyful experience creating music videos and producing music videos in a very strong narrative format. I started doing that in July of 2022, this July. And it was very scary for me because I'd never done it before, but I sort of came at it with the mind of a beginner. I wouldn't have done it if I really knew how hard it was.
Oh, yeah.
And it was incredibly stressful, but man, what a thrill. And when I was on that set, we were in a Victorian mansion in Lakewood, New Jersey, that I had managed to secure for free. An actual Victorian mansion from a railroad magnate in the 1800s. And I had created this sort of Victorian fantasy-scape for a song that I'll be releasing actually in April called Bronte. We're making our film festival debut at the Garden State Film Festival in March, actually.
Oh, it's, a lot of history to talk about there, yeah.
You know about that film fest. We both won the same award there. But what a thrill. When I was on that set, and I was, I saw my crew, I was, being dressed by wardrobe, I was singing, I was dancing. It felt like the perfect marriage of every stage and every life that I've led through this, I suppose very feline career I've had. I feel like I've had so many lives. So many lives. It felt like the perfect marriage. I was dancing, I was singing, I was acting, I was behind the camera, I was directing for the first time, I produced, and I was also getting everyone's crafty orders for the love of, I was doing so many different things. It felt like a perfect marriage, and it became addictive, and I was like, I want to continue doing that. And so I'm writing the songs also, so I'm composing, and then I liked it so much the first time, I did it another time. So that was this past Saturday. We actually did a music video for my upcoming record, which will be out in hopefully by June, but definitely by July, because I can't keep it any longer.
I just want to say congratulations. I'm so excited to see and hear everything you're working on, and you have all my luck and love and strength for this journey that you are going through for yourself as an artist, to find where your passion and where it takes you, and where you find yourself down a road that maybe isn't the one that's, the straight ahead path, where you might, get off on some detours and find some things about yourself that you didn't know you loved, and find some magic that you wouldn't have explored had you not given yourself the freedom to say, I don't have to be this thing that I thought I had to be at this age, comparative to somebody else and other successes. So congratulations, and I'm so excited about that. I've listened to pretty much all your music on Spotify, and I absolutely love it. You have such I've always admired you. We met on a commercial set. I don't know when. Yes! It was very early in our careers.
I can actually tell you the year.
Yeah,
you can? Tell you the year.
Please.
Yes, I can, because I was doing a show off Broadway at the time, and I think it was
Yes, I remember this.
I think it was 2013.
Wow.
We met in 2013. I think we met in June of 2013.
Almost 10 years ago.
A United Way commercial.
Yes.
Where we played high schoolers, and we were singing a version of I think the song was No More Pencils, No More
Yes,
books,
yes.
School's out for the summer. You can actually find this commercial on the internet, and it's hilarious.
Wow. I'm so glad you have a more fond memory than I do of it. For me, I don't even think I made it into the final thing, which is just hysterical to begin with. But anyway, that was...
You left a really deep impression on me, Paul. When I met you, I was like, this guy has it together. Like, I'm really excited to watch his journey. So I started following you, and I'm just like, I'm going to, you had like a great spirit about you. So I was just like, I'm going to follow his journey. you know, I've got to say that, you know, a lot of the strides that you took inspired me to, if you hadn't won the Rising Star Award at the Garden State Film Festival, I would have never applied in the first place, for example. You know what I mean? And so I admired like how you were doing your own work, producing your own films, you know, acting, you know, being a component in so many other people's projects, but also creating your own. And now with your own voiceover work, you have a blog, you also got this podcast, you're doing so much. And I just want to say, you know, as a person who's been out here in the wings watching you, it's been really beautiful to watch. And I'm very proud of you. Truly.
Thank you. That means a lot to me, and it goes right back to you because I was, you might not believe this, but I was only at the beginning of what I was going to say about you. I really, it goes right back to you. I really respected you, and I took you, I knew right away you were someone who had a very powerful, you had a presence about you, and there was power behind that presence, and I see that in your music, and there's a beautiful power in the music that you put out, because there's a lot of moments that are very passionate and very gentle, and then there's a lot of things that have so much heart, that there's so much strength that is coming through that the way you express that passion and that love. A lot of these, you know, there's a lot of stuff that is about very, very vulnerable subjects in your music, and I absolutely love it. And I love that it's not just in English, that you explore a lot of the Spanish language and the music that you use. And I think that's I'm just excited to see your career and whatever further is in your future for you, because I know the last album you had done was in 2019. Am I correct in saying that?
No. So my last single, Human Years, was in 2019, and that's actually closer to it was a single, and I released it right before the pandemic hit, thinking that the world was going to be normal for me to be working on a record and stuff like that. It wasn't the case.
Okay.
But my last record was actually in 2013, so a lot of this music you're hearing was just really a time capsule. Because listening to it now, I can't believe that I did that and recorded most of that record when I was graduating college and figuring that out. The sound has graduated so much since then. I'm so excited for you to hear the new work, you know. And I think it's interesting because a lot of people in the music biz, and the thing is, I'm doing this for my joy. I think it's really good. I think the music's really good. I think the videos are fantastic. But I'm at a place in my life where I don't really care if I'm famous. I care if I'm happy. It's just really where I'm at, and I don't care if I'm famous. I care if I'm following my joy, and you know. So a lot of people say, you know, delete that old record, but I think that if we don't acknowledge where we've been, where are we really going?
Yeah.
You know, so I'm going to keep it there for now, you know, watch me like delete it, you know, at another time. But the music's really changed and really metamorphosized. And I think people that have listened to my last record will find this next one really refreshing.
Yeah.
The record that's coming up is called La Luna, which means the moon. My first record was March Towards the Sun, and the second one is, you know, a full sort of lunar phase, you know, into the moon. And it explores a lot of the beauties, but also the darkness, you know, a little bit more of the darkness that, you know, happens as we get older. You know, I wrote so many of those songs when I was just, you know, coming out into the real world, I guess. And, and was just learning about things for the first time. And the title single is actually, all of the songs are in English except for one, but that song is very important because it's about finding us, you know, you can, even in the darkest moments of life, you can always find a sliver of light. And so that's what the moon is symbolic of. Even in the darkest times, the moon is also illuminates us just as much as the sun can. So I think that's what makes a beautiful life. I think it makes for richer art, and I'm really looking forward to this next step. And it's not to say that I'm stopping acting. I'm working on a musical project next week. I'm always auditioning. I have a couple of films in the can. Like I'm always very happy to be a part of other people's dreams, but I think it's a time for me to share my thoughts, feelings, and share my work and bring that to life too. And I don't think that I would have been able to do that if I haven't experienced what I've experienced. I would have never been able to produce, essentially music videos or short films. I wouldn't have ever been able to do that if I hadn't been on film sets. I wouldn't have ever been able to sing and dance if I hadn't studied those things and had that opportunity, or been on those stages, or learned to present myself. From the time I was a kid, I used to sing national anthems for free from the time I was like 8 years old for all of these like governors and like political events and city events. I wouldn't have ever learned how to present myself if I hadn't learned from an early age how to comport myself in front of adults, in front of an audience. And so everything's just sort of coming together in a beautiful way, and it's not how I planned, but I'm going with it, and I'm cool with it. So
I'm excited for you, and I'm very very excited. And as someone who has had a life of doing film production and understanding what kind of collaborative, scary, and insanely rewarding experience it can be, I am excited for you to experience what that life, and you've already had a taste of it, but on whatever scale you want to take that to, it can be some of the most rewarding things in the world to create something with a group of people and to see the final result and to share it with the world, or to share it with whoever you want to. I think it's a really beautiful and magical thing to do. And, people always say, go on the weekends, go make some movies with your friends. You don't need a big budget camera. You can use your cell phone if you need to. Just if you want to be a creative, you can create. Just go ahead and start creating.
Absolutely. We're the only people that are stopping ourselves, because we have this whole idea of how perfect it has to be. And, I'm a Virgo, so I know how my mind works. I'm always like, it has to be perfect. But really, I think done is better than good in so many cases.
Yes.
Done is better than good. And go do your art and go live your life, I think, is what I would say. And, find a way for you to continue pursuing the artistic life, because if this is what you want, it's so worth it. It's so worth it, There's a lot of heartache too, which, we all acknowledge. There's a lot of rejection. I've probably been on, at this point, thousands of auditions, and I've only gotten a handful of them, and some of them have done really well, and I'm really, really grateful for that, but I think if you find the balance between making your own work and then being a part of other people's dreams, then, that's the dream life as an artist, I think. And you never know, maybe I'll have a production company one day. I do have a screenplay that I wrote during the pandemic that I've also have there. That's a dream for another day, but right now I'm focusing on the album.
Amazing. You're a creative through and through, and what presents it, and I think you're following, you're surrendering to the universe, and you're seeing what comes, and as it comes, let it. It's really great. I'm very happy for you. As somebody who has been living in New York City, and we were talking a little bit about, having a career as a voiceover, doing commercials and radio and audiobooks in this world that a lot of people don't want to surrender to. A lot of the people I talk to are from LA now at this point that I've been living out here, but I know that New York life very well. Can you talk a little bit about the experience that you've had and the reward that voiceover has been for you in the New York market, and how it's maybe from your eyes been different than the LA market, or what the things you love about being in New York and the opportunities you're seeing there? Can you just talk about the voiceover experience in the tri-state area?
Sure. So I had my first foray into voiceover as a child, doing bilingual work for Houghton Mifflin, teaching people Spanish. My mom and I did this together. My mom is not an actor, but she found this opportunity for us when I was really young, and I started doing bilingual voiceover in Spanish and English, teaching people how to speak Spanish. And in the day, it used to be that you would show up for an audition at a studio and do your audition and then, record in a studio. And that's the way that it was for many, many years, up until the pandemic. This is actually a funny story. When I actually started doing voiceover, I had no idea there was no camera involved, so I would flat iron my hair to go for voiceover auditions because I thought that there was a camera involved. I had no idea. That's how I learned. But I learned, and then I said, oh, there's a microphone here. There's no camera.
Yeah.
And this is what voiceover is. It's been a real joy and something that I didn't really appreciate until I was kicked off of my mom's health insurance plan at 26. And then it became a real lifeline because the joy of voiceover is getting to bring your experience and your joy into a script that is, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, bringing your own unique and authentic self to a script for a brand, in my case, in Spanish or in English, and getting to work for, maybe 5 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, depending on how long the session is or how the client wants you to deliver the line. I can only say that during the pandemic, I appreciated it even more because it was the way for us to work. And building a studio was a unique, and building a studio alone when you don't have any experience in doing it was a really unique and wonderful thing for me. It showed me that I can do it, and learning what a DAW is, creating this closet that was full of junk for years, and finally making it into a space that I could work in. And essentially, that's how I've been working this entire pandemic. I've done some TV film, yes, but I've supported myself with this booth.
Yeah.
And I will never not be grateful for it. And I will never not be grateful for the fact that I can do it in 2 languages. Truly.
Yeah.
The Spanish voiceover market, while there are less channels for us, especially on TV, there are still residuals coming in, and I'm so happy that I can express myself in both ways. And it used to be so different. We used to go to voiceover auditions. In my case, I would commute to voiceover auditions and have, commute like 45 minutes one way, 45 minutes another way, just for 1 minute with a casting director and for the most case, not booking the work. But now I can literally just pile into my studio at whatever time of night. I was recording until 2:30 in the morning yesterday. But there's just a beautiful silence and oneness that I feel with this studio, because I feel it's not even a studio, but I call it that. It's a booth that is 6 feet tall and not even my entire wingspan wide. So what can I say about voiceover? A lot of people don't think of it as real acting. I would like to disagree there. I think that if you can't communicate if you can't communicate a story, if you can't put someone, a face of someone you're talking to on the other side of the mic, if you can't say something convincingly in 15 seconds, how can you do a play?
Yeah.
How can you be on camera? And no one knows that commercial work is actually one of the most lucrative forms of work in our business. People don't think about that.
I just had an audition today. I think I just recorded it today, and all the refs that they gave it couldn't have sounded more unlike the traditional voiceover spot. They wanted that real, raw, authentic sound that we see in every spec breakdown right now. But I'm noticing when I do further discovery and I see who are the people that are booking these things, a lot of the times it's people who don't necessarily have a full-on voiceover career. It's people who have understood how to act in that natural way, who understand how to listen and respond and are used to communicating with scene partners, whether on stage or on screen. Because I think a lot of people who come from a traditional voiceover background, it becomes you and the microphone as opposed to you and your scene partner who just isn't in the same room as you.
Oh, what a great way to put it.
You know,
and
it's so I'm seeing that more and more, and I from someone like you who's had success in doing theater and on camera and film, I wonder if that's something that you try to utilize when you are doing these things. When you do you approach it the same way, even when it's a radio or a commercial spot? Are you approaching it as the diligent actor breaking down a script or a set of sides? Is that the way you're looking at it?
I simplify it a little bit for myself because I'm a very analytical brain. Very analytical brain. So there are a couple of things that I do. I keep pictures of my people in my booth. So I break it down to, how do I want to make this person feel? And what is my verb here? Am I trying to comfort? Am I trying to nourish? Am I telling them I love them through the script? Am I trying to tickle them? Am I trying to cajole them? Am I trying to turn them off? Like, what is it that I'm doing here? Who am I talking to? And try not to sound like a robot. Those are my three things that I try, because there was, I think when I was growing up, voiceover it just sounded a little bit more different. It sounded a lot more official. It was very announcery. And it's funny because I've gotten, and I'll just, I've gotten a lot of criticism over the years about my voice, my speaking voice. And a really good teacher recently, and I'll say why I've gotten some things about my voice. I'm a singer and I have a bit of a higher pitched voice a lot of the time. I'm very dropped in right now, so you probably can't hear it. But there are times when I'm a little bit higher, and a teacher a couple of years ago said something very damaging about my voice, saying that I was never going to lead on Broadway or do all of these things because of the tone of my voice, which really was quite hurtful. And then through voiceover, I've learned to love my speaking voice. Love it. And because there is a place for every voice in voiceover. You just have to find your right thing. And it could be animation, which I love, and I live in that world a lot. Or it can be commercial voiceover. It can be audiobook. My teacher, and she's a great voiceover coach and teacher and mentor. Her name is Deborah Sperling. I don't know if you know Deborah. She's incredible.
Her name floats around a lot, especially in the New York community.
Deborah's incredible. It was a very emotional experience for me, my first coaching session with her. She was basically saying, you have a beautiful voice, and it's beautiful as it is. You don't have to do anything or try to change it, because for years I was trying to speak so much lower, probably damaging my instrument and trying to hurt myself. It's the same as go with the flow with where you are today and accept it. And learn to love where you are today and work with that. So that's what voiceover has done for me on a spiritual level, other than health insurance and so many wonderful things, And I think people that once turned their noses at it before the pandemic, once the pandemic hit, they were like, oh boy, because I literally saw the masses jumping into the voiceover pool once this thing started. And, I'm grateful that I was here before that. And, the first week of the pandemic, I was like, well, I'm building my booth because I've been doing this for a couple of years in other people's studios. Why not have my own little booth at home?
The gates were definitely, wide open, and the actors who were out of work on camera, theater, film were begging.
And still are, because we're not back. We are just not back yet. And the world is very different for our industry. We're all trying to learn how to navigate with it, whether it's making your own work or jumping into a different form of acting. We've got to be flexible.
I think that if you limit yourself to thinking you are only one type of actor, or even within voiceover, you're only going to read for one thing, then you have eliminated so many other streams of revenue that you could be having, and they all they all boil down to being to acting and to being truthful. So if you've got that component as an actor, I think you can find a way within learning the little tips and tricks and the things about each genre. You know, you should understand what you're reading for.
Absolutely.
But there's
and understand what you like.
Yeah,
I think is a big thing. So you can find focus, because when people hear this, they're going to be like, oh, I have to have 20 different like career paths or like pursue 20 different things within this. Like, I learned pretty early my sweet spots in voiceover. I love animation and I love commercial voiceover.
Yeah.
That's for me. I like that.
But many people don't even give themselves an opportunity to see if they like it. They just think, oh, I'm going to be an animation voice actor, or I'm going to do video games. And then they remove that opportunity of falling in love with something like audiobooks or, you know, industrials, and thinking, wow, I can do this and I'm really good at it and I like it and I can pay my bills doing this and I can maybe, you know, reap the rewards of something that I wrote off initially because it doesn't have the same cachet or Hollywood star factor that you might get from being on an animated show or in an anime or a video game. So
what do you think about this? You know, it's like the way that I see voiceover is that I see it as like this beautiful day job that can, you know, and feed so much of my other passions that happen to also be in the voice realm.
Yeah.
You know, it's, I think right now, for anyone interested in getting into this industry, it's one of the best day jobs that you can have. I love working from home and I love being in my little studio. And in terms of cachet, you know, I had a lot of people think that, and we'll go into this again, commercial acting and voiceover acting is not acting.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. And I think it's so interesting that you mentioned people that are non-actors that actually do so much of this work. You know, at my agency, Buchwald, I remember there was an Apple bar genius who would come in and do auditions. And because he had all of this tech experience, he had a booth at home, and he was one of the first people I knew who mentioned ISDN or, you know, or IDP, what is it? IDPTL or something?
IPDTL.
IPDTL. That's it. He had IPDTL and he was consistently working, and he was just like a regular dude, and he booked all of this work. And because he used his experiences from his life as a tech genius at Apple, he was one of the first people doing the thing, like probably at the highest level, from home.
Yeah.
And, you know, it took a lot of us some time to get there, maybe because we didn't see it as the full-time thing. And boy, were we sorry when this pandemic happened and we weren't ready for it.
Oh, yeah.
So I jumped in head first. I know you did too. When this happened, I was like, I'm just going to learn all that I can. And, you know, for the sake of, you know, being able to utilize your gifts in different ways, we have to be open-minded to that. Use your gifts in different ways.
Absolutely.
You know?
I would love to talk about a gift that was probably for you, and one of the gifts that you gave a lot of the people in the world that they know you from is your work in the Netflix movie The Week Of, which you got to, you know, you're having this title role in an Adam Sandler film, and it's the dream for many people. That is like, you know, you're dealing all this press. You're with one of the biggest stars in the world. It's got probably one of the most eyes at the time when it released, because it's, you know, Adam Sandler. Everything he touches has a cult-like ravenous appetite for people, and it was a really, and Chris Rock, I mean, like, it was such, Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, like, it couldn't have been a more
Steve Buscemi, Rachel Dratch, like, couldn't be better. It was so amazing.
You're surrounded by all of this kind of talent and success, and it's a thing on Netflix. Can you just break down, as, you know, concise as you'd like here? I know I'm being conscious of your time here. You know, getting that opportunity, you know, to play with these people, and to what was going through your mind after, you know, booking what many people believe to be, and what I'm sure has still been for you, a dream role.
That audition came in just the way any audition comes. It came through my inbox, and I thought, cool, I'm auditioning for an Adam Sandler film.
Yeah.
Probably not gonna get it. I auditioned for it, but for some reason I saw those dates and I'm like, I'm available. I'm just going to block off those dates in my mind. It was one of these weird things.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I'm available July through August of this year. I'll be, this is cool. I went into the audition and I just decided I'm just going to be the most genuine version of myself. I started wearing my hair natural a couple of years ago. So I did that. I wore flannel. I wore jeans. I wore boots. The New York sort of fall look. I did that.
Straight out of the catalog.
Yeah, pretty much. And what I love is that Adam Sandler is a man without pretension, and I went in without pretension too. And since I've seen him on screen my entire life, basically, it wasn't hard for me imagining that my scene partner was him. And I just talked to the reader as if I were talking to Adam Sandler, but who also happened to be my dad in my head. And that audition, which actually was in a space where a lot of voiceover and commercial auditions took place. I think it's like on 36th or 37th, and I think it's Melsky's place now, but it was Beth Melsky. But it's across the street from like this poke place, like on between 6th and 7th Avenue. Anyway, people listening who aren't in New York are not going to connect to that, but I'm trying to connect to the New Yorkness of it.
I do.
But I go to this audition, and I didn't really think much of it, and then I decided to follow my joy and go visit my best friend for the weekend. And I literally went from there to New Haven, Connecticut, to have the weekend with my best friend. I was moving him in because he's a doctor at Yale. And I ended up getting the call back a couple days later that's why I say that fun is the greatest manifester. I was with him and I was helping him move in, having my joy full time with my best friend. Got this call back, go into the callback, and basically did the same thing for Robert Smigel, who's, for those who are listening, is Triumph Comedy Insult Dog on Conan O'Brien, and also Alan Covert, who is one of the head producers at Happy Madison, but also an actor in his own right. I think his movie was Grandma's Boy. Yeah. He's an amazing person. I did the same thing for them, and then I didn't hear anything for a couple of weeks, and I assumed that the job was not mine. And I had read the script at this point. It was so funny. I remember I was moving my best friend in, and I was just laughing reading the script while everyone else was asleep. We were all on like air mattresses, and I'm laughing in New Haven, Connecticut at this script. A dream role. I get the job while I'm in rehearsal for another show, for a workshop for a musical. And I went from the presentation of this musical. I was working at St. Anne's Warehouse at the time. And I went on the subway from the presentation to this musical. And that subway sort of like transported me into this new era of my life. I went to rehearsal with Robert Smigel and Roland Buck III, who played my fiance and later husband in the film. And we started doing fittings for wedding dresses. And I lived in Long Island for 2 months, and Adam Sandler was like my real dad. When we did that father-daughter dance, it felt like he was my dad, and we just became such a big family. And Robert Smigel is one of the nicest people in the world. I would work with him anytime, anywhere, which is why I'm saying I'll never quit acting, because I think I just love jumping from happy lily pad to happy lily pad. Wherever the joy is, try to find those lily pads, amazing, kind collaborators. And that's what Adam Sandler does. He creates a family of collaborators, and he tends to work with a lot of the same people because he's found his sweet spot. And being on that set was like a dream, and it spoiled me. And, we released the film a couple of months later, and I love working with the Happy Madison crew. I'm looking forward to doing it again, and they're all lovely people. There's nothing to say. It was absolutely a dream that has spoiled every other set for me.
Well, it's like you're saying, it seems very much like Adam has created an environment and a production company where he's only doing things where he has fun and he wants to do what he wants to do. So if you haven't seen that...
And it's inspiring. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off. It's really inspiring to see the people that he surrounds himself with. because I think it's something that we should all aspire to. Surround ourselves with the best and brightest, with the people that make us feel our happiest and most joyful and help us operate at the highest level. You know what I mean? There's just good energy on all of his sets. And people on the outside might be saying, why doesn't he incorporate new people? He does.
Yeah.
But he also
look at you.
takes... Yeah, but I'm like, when he picked me for this shoot, he doesn't know who I am. I met him on the first day of set. That wasn't something that I got because I knew somebody.
Yeah.
It was something that I genuinely booked off of a tape. So he has a good sense for good people that are just genuine. And as I, create my own little film sets and work on producing my own work, I think to myself, I want to work with people who want to work with me. And I think that's what we should all aspire to, creating, the most, it's the best and most conducive thing for our work is to be surrounded with people who want to work with us and who we want to work with as well.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that better myself. It is what fuels me as an artist to work with people who enjoy not just working with me, even just the collaborative experience and making art that we all kind of enjoy and love and have a good experience doing. Because there's nothing worse than working on a project that people are dreading and they're not really in it, and you've got to manage egos and expectations when everybody's on board and they're all collaborating and people are working towards a common goal and they like each other. That's when you start finding magic to happen. Not when it's
Absolutely.
like, this person needs this, or, this person doesn't even really want to be here. The list goes on. But Allison, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing so much. You truly are one of the brightest lights that I know. And granted, we don't get to see each other, unfortunately, as much as I would love to. But I from the blessing that is social media, I do get to see your light shine digitally. And
thank you so much, Paul. And Paul, may I drop a little, what do they call it? Those plugs when you plug something?
Please plug. Please.
So one of my first single in a really long time is coming out next Friday. So that's February 17th. I'm releasing an acoustic cover of Landslide, so people can listen to that, and it'll be a good sign of what's to come in the coming months for my own record. So if you're listening out there, I hope my music can be a comfort to you and a soundtrack for whatever it is that you're pursuing in your own life. So
heck yes. That's Allison Strong on Spotify, and is your YouTube Allison Strong as well? Where else can people find this?
Absolutely. So if you follow me at Allison T. Strong on Instagram, you'll get all of the updates, or you can sign up for my mailing list at AllisonStrong.com, and all of my socials, everything is up on AllisonStrong.com.
Go. Allison, you have been fantastic. I truly appreciate your honesty and your strength and sharing your stories with us. It has been an amazing experience getting to chat with you after all this time. I know we've stayed connected as much as we can, but truly I miss you, and thank you. Thank you. I'm excited for the music video and everything. So, I can't wait to watch it.
There's so many of them. There are 3 of them coming, so get ready.
I'm waiting eagerly. Allison, everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Paul.
All right. Take care. I know we didn't get to talk a lot about it, but please check out The Week Of on Netflix. It's I'm just so proud of Allison and her work in that movie, and it was an opportunity for her to really shine. It is I think only a snapshot of her capability, in addition to all of the musicals and plays and TV series that she's done. She is just really talented, and as you could probably tell, down to earth and a genuine human being and soul. 10 years. It's been 10 years that I've known her and got to watch her career also flourish. And it's so brave and inspiring to watch somebody find different nooks of this industry that they want to play in. There is not, people think like, I'm an actor, I have to keep acting and I have to keep doing this one thing because I can't just be other things as well. I can't be an entrepreneur and an actor at the same time. I can't be a baker and an actor. I can only be an actor. It's so ridiculous. Like, you can continue to act and also pursue other passions and loves. And I think that's very it's one of the most beneficial things an actor can do is live and experience and try different things. Try painting, try singing, try different instruments, try and learn different languages, try and experience different cultures, try and do everything you can to get out in the world and experience what a character you might play will experience. So on the Points of Experience podcast, we are talking about experience. Ba-dun-chung. Yeah. Allison Strong, everybody. Please like and subscribe. Leave us a review on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you so choose. YouTube comments are really helpful for us, and we will continue to keep bringing on amazing guests and having some engaging and wonderful conversations about the experiences and beauty of life. So thank you all once again, and we will see you all on the next one.